We're live.
Yeah, it's live. It's happening now. A little bonus for the YouTube specials. Hey, up to 212 subscribers over there on the YouTube. If you're not subscribed there, what are you doing? Because you get little bonuses like this. Jacob, I messaged you earlier today that I was in a tizzy.
You were in a bit of a tizzy.
I was in a bit of a tizzy. Okay, and the last time we were here, we talked a little bit of strategy. So I was like, what would be a good idea? We don't really get to talk a ton of like in-season strategy changes because we're so busy with happening with the week to week. So let's talk this. When does a rebuild not need to be a full teardown? This is what I want to talk about.
That's a good question. Yeah.
So there was something in a league today with some very smart people who I like very much. And my team is 1-7. Not great, right? I am like 4th in points for. Mm-hmm. I am number 1 in points. Like every week, I am just losing to the other highest score. I am 12th in the league. It's not a total points for league. It is last place. I am looking at Bijan or one of these quarterbacks, whatever I want to do. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, here's one of the questions. At what point do you look at someone like Christian McCaffrey, who in all intents and purposes is locked into San Francisco on that team, and go, I need to force a trade that, in my opinion, you don't really need. You've already got a top tier pick locked up. You clearly have a good squad. I'll put it's Christian McCaffrey. It's DeAndre Swift. It is not Etienne. Etienne got traded for, in my opinion, a bucket of used balls. But and that's what I mean. Like, at what point do you just say, I'm going to hold and I'm going to kick this thing back in next year? Like, you have all your picks. You have a high points for. You don't roster like DeAndre Hopkins is probably the oldest player that you're looking at on this team. It's not like you have a bunch of cucks. But at what point do you look at it and go, I don't need to completely tear this down? Because when I asked this question to you, I said, like, you don't have to trade your 26-year-old elite player if you're in, like, this is a very niche scenario. Yeah. In other scenarios, I would say, yeah, fuck it, trade it. But let's say if the trade was, that's not what the trade was, but let's say if it was Javonte 2 seconds for Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore, you don't have to back yourself into that corner just because it is a, quote, rebuild.
So I think that if you are not competitive, I think there's stages to what you have to do. I think you have to make everyone available, first of all. Like, ultimately, once you're at the point where you no longer have a consideration in winning in the current year, nobody can be off the table. Okay.
Right.
That's the first thing. In terms of then, like, who you have to move, I think if you're able to get market value, anyone who's going to be depreciating, I think you've got to go. Right. So I think Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Hopkins, to me, if you get market value on those guys, they got to be out the door.
I would agree with that.
I'm not saying you have to sell them immediately. You have until the trade deadline. You have until whatever. You can try and wait until you get a better offer. You never know what offers are going to come down the road. The best offer today might not be the best offer in 2 weeks. But the first time I'm offered market value on those guys, they're out the door. Mm-hmm. I think that, with other guys, like the younger guys, let's say the Travis Etiennes or the Andre Swifts or the AJ Browns, like those types of guys, I think that those are more interesting scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to make them available. Like, I think it's a number one mistake that managers make when they're like, that guy is off the table. I will not consider an offer for him because he's part of my long-term plans. Ultimately, you don't need to have a perfectly set lineup at that point in time where you're rebuilding. The only guys where I think it's perfectly acceptable to say they're fully off the table would be your elite superflex quarterbacks, your elite superflex tight ends, because they just don't come around. Not Kelsey, of course, he's 34. But, like, I think if you're rebuilding and you have Pitts or you have Andrews, and I think if you have Lamar, Kyler, Herbert, Hurts, I'm missing Mahomes, Allen, Watson, those types of guys, I think it's fine to take those guys off the table. I'd be putting guys like Brown, guys like Etienne, guys like Walker, guys like Swift, all of them on the table. But you better come to me with a big offer, right?
Right. That's
because those guys are still going to be effective next year. Not only effective next year. I think that's one thing people say. People, like, I was talking to a guy in a rebuild who was like, well, I don't need to sell Devontae Adams. He's still going to be good next year. It's true. He's still going to be good next year. He's going to still be worth less, though, because a big part of his value, a big chunk of these prime age guys' value is what they give you this year. Yep. So having that not be part of your team, not being able to take advantage of that on your team, I think you're missing an opportunity. So I would be selling, but I would be asking myself at the end of the day, if you got down to trade deadline is, and what I'm getting now, better value versus what I could get for them in the offseason versus what their value will be in a startup next year, right? If you're getting completely lowballed where it's not, then whatever. But otherwise, I'm okay taking a slight market hit to do that, because at the end of the day, you're just gathering assets and you can reallocate, you can repurchase, you can do whatever. So like my ideal scenario, especially if I do have my own pick, is I roster, no players really, except maybe a quarterback or a tight end. I mean, look at like my team in Tundra that Tom knows about. I basically don't roster any players. Like I have like 423 first, I have 624 first, I have like 325 first. I have like half the second round in each of the 3 years. I think 60% of my roster at this point is from the 2022 rookie class. And that's like the only players that I have.
And even still, that's not many.
No, it's not many. It's like I have like all the UDFAs. I have Isaiah Likely popping off for 20 this week. In my lineup.
Right.
So that's the kind of situation.
I think you're right in that sense, but I think there's a handful of players that might be on rebuilders. Let's say a DeAndre Swift. In this odd case, like again, this is a very niche case that I'm talking about. It's why I want to personally. We don't go, this is my league and this is what's happening. We don't do that often, but
I think it's good to talk about though, because everything is different, right?
Yeah. So in this case, I don't think you're gonna I don't think I'm gonna get fair market value because people are looking like you have to do this. So why would I pay? I think there's a select few guys. I think if you look at a couple of guys like Christian McCaffrey, I think you look at a couple of guys like DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor or Breece Hall. I don't think whatever you're getting offered for them today, I think you'll get offered for them next year. I really do, unless they're if you're able to hold off the risk of something drastic happening to them, like injuries will happen, sure. Maybe something to that nature. Maybe they draft like a high profile route. Sure, maybe. But I think for the most part, getting a 1+ a player is definitely in the range of possibilities for Christian McCaffrey next year. It's there for DeAndre Swift. I just think that there's a select few guys that you don't have to yeet for the sake of yeeting, just to get that one piece better, especially if you are one of those people that tend to look at like, oh, it's a late one, which is really hard to predict. I mean, I say this all the time. It's impossible to be like.
That's an important thing we haven't talked about on the show. I've been talking about this with people on the Discord and stuff too. Like, I think
that's the bulletproof Discord.
Yes, that's true. That this is now the part of the year where I'm basically not trading for any 23-1s. And I'm not like against it. If someone comes to me and they're like, I want to trade you by 23-1, I'm not telling them to go away. But basically, the reason for that is at this point in time, people actually kind of know what the 2023 standings look like for the most part in your league, right?
Agreed.
At this point in time, there's a lot less ambiguity. The teams that have early 23-1s, now there's exceptions to this, right? Sometimes you might have a playoff team that has somebody else's one, and that one's early, and they might want to trade you that early one. So that's a potential exception. That being said,
I mean, I tried to do it with you like 2 weeks ago, and you weren't having it with Am's one net. So
right, exactly.
I tried damn hard.
So that's an exception, right? That's a potential exception. But even then, at this point in time, like there's no longer, hey, anything can happen. It's like, no, that dude's 1-8, and I know that pick's going to be 1, 2, or 3. So like you can trade for it, but at that point, there's no longer an ambiguity. It's like you're trading for this, and you're paying up for the fact that it is looking like 1, 2, or 3, or 4, right? That's kind of where we're at. And the late ones, they are late ones. Like you're no longer getting the benefit of the doubt. It's if a 7-1 team is offering you their 1, like you are getting probably pick 9, 10, 11, or 12, right? So you don't get that tail. At this point in time, most people, even contenders in that situation are still valuing their 23-1 above their 24-1. And so for me, I'm kind of pivoting. I don't want to pay the iron price for the early first. Like I want to buy first that become early. I want to soak in the value. I don't really want to pay up for the super early first. So I don't really want to buy the early ones for that reason. I don't really want to buy the late ones because they're confirmed late ones at this point. So I'll take your 24-1, and you might even be able to get a 24-1 and a 2 instead of like a late 23-1 and a 3. And then you have the opportunity that, okay, that team that's really good this year, maybe things go off the rails next year. That actually becomes an early one. You're buying more upside, I think, with the 24-1. So I've been buying more 24-1s recently, and then I'm at the point where I'm more willing to sell some of my 23-1s on some of my contending teams, where it's like, okay, now I know where my team is at. Where I know this team is actually really good. Like this is a team that I know can secure a buy. It's a team that's legitimately contending. So I'm not just spending good money after bad. I also know where my needs are, so I can make a targeted attack with this first. I'm not just spraying and praying. And then I know what I can withstand, right? Maybe certain teams that I thought were contenders, maybe they still are contenders, but like the rookie that I added was Sky Moore and not Chris Olave. A couple of the old guys have died out, and now I'm worried about the long-term value of this team. But like, I had a team, the shout out to the Big Billy Invitational, where I was like, my team looks like it's in really good shape. I'm not that worried about it being in bad shape next year. I'm going to go buy an elite player. I'm going to go buy Stephon Diggs on that team to give myself an extra jolt, right? That's a deal that I wouldn't have made back in week 1. So I think that's where I'm selling off some of my 23 ones to go make those push deals right now. I'm doing it only for the elites of the elites or for quarterback upgrades, stuff like that. But then the 24 ones is where I'm really targeting in my other leagues.
No, I agree. And we said this in the walkabout like quite a while ago. I want the other managers' ones to begin with. I want to bet against my opponents. If I know that my team won't be as bad in 2024, I want that guy's ones. There was a trade done in the league of record. We're at 11 minutes. We're gonna kick the episode off in a minute, for the bonus people. But there's a league in the league of record, right? Trade in the league of record. I traded a 23-1 and a 24-1. I got DeAndre Swift and unfortunately Algier, but he was basically forced into it. And then I got what will be for sure an early 3. It's the shout out Stolt, but it's for sure an early 3. And I feel like it was okay because it was important that it was my 24-1. I'm confident that I was willing to part with that in that case. And I have another manager's 24-1, and I am not confident in that manager being able to sustain their team through 2024. So I feel like there are times where it is appropriate, but to circle back to the base of the conversation, you do not have to force yourself into bad trades because you are, quote, rebuilding on some of these young players. Exactly. There is time. You don't have to. That's it. That's all. That's the conversation.
I have more. I was going to keep going.
Carry on.
That's the last point I'll make on it. Sorry. I think so. I view rebuilds like, to me at this point in the year, there's almost like 2 different types of rebuilds. So, and I've done both. Like, so there's like a couple of teams where I'm like, oh, this team sucks. Like, it's like, I don't know, like it's like I drafted like Allen Robinson or something, and he's a total nothing. I was depending on a breakout from like a Kadarius Toney, and he's a total nothing. Or, I was depending on Trey Lance, and he gets injured, whatever. Like, there's teams where it's like, oh, like the value of this team, both in terms of the current year and going forward, is no longer what I thought it was. And so like, I need to go into hibernation mode. I need to conserve calories. I need to conserve energy. I need to trade whatever I can trade for picks and pivot and full rebuild. And there's other teams where I'm like, no, this team is like good. Like, it has value. I have the pieces that I want, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't won games. Like, maybe it's just players were hurt or they underperformed, or, I've just been playing against teams that are outscoring me, whatever it is. But like, there was 2 leagues for sure this week where I feel like totally fine about my team's value long-term. I don't think it's in any issue next year, but I just looked at it, I was like, man, like, I'm scraping for the 6th seed here. The odds that like, I'm going to be able to get to the 6th seed, win 3 games in a row against other really good teams, it's just not high enough for me to continue to sink cost into this team. And so I think on those teams, it's a little bit different. Like those teams. So like one, for instance, I have Jamar Chase and I have Drake London and I have Lamar Jackson. I have a couple other, and I was like, no, I'm not going to sell these core pieces because I'm fine on value. I don't need to create value. I just need to get rid of whatever's going to depreciate and reload. The other one, I have Lamar Jackson, I have Travis Etienne, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're available. If someone makes me a Godfather offer, for sure, but I don't feel forced because I feel like that team's fine next year. It's just this year isn't the year. So I think there's different types of rebuilds where one is like, you're just sort of deciding this year isn't the year. And another one is more like, I need to create maximum value. And that's where you want to lean into that uncertainty, where I don't want to store value in guys that are worth 2 firsts, even if they're young, because I need to create surplus value. I need to be able to break Swift up into a first in 3 seconds to give myself 4 chances to hit big to go and create surplus value in my team because I don't have enough. So I think that's the difference.
It's also hella important to remember, and this is a big case for all of it. It's important to know your league. Knowing your league is also super important. Some leagues are just not getting market value and you have to adjust. That's just how it is. Become a spreadsheet nerd. Mark that kind of stuff down so it's a quick track for you to keep track of. Let's kick the show off here. We're at episode 75. Unreal. Let's go. The time has come. Look, if you are listening to this, wherever you're listening to, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Stitcher, wherever you're listening to your Full Tilt Dynasty podcast, you missed a heck of an introduction. For our YouTube subscribers, we go live early, an extra 5-10 minutes. Sometimes it's just us talking some shit. Other times, the last couple times, it's been some strategy talk. And you get that as a little bonus just for subscribing to YouTube. So you're not going to miss this. Today it was rebuilding teams and how to handle it. So you're going to want to check that out. Head to YouTube. This is the Full Tilt Podcast Network, right? We are presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. So shout out to Fantasy Points. We absolutely love them over there. And of course, we are partnered up with Underdog Fantasy as well. This is episode 175 of the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast Network. This is absolutely nuts, but we're growing. Well, look, we hit over 210 subscribers on YouTube. That number was at about 105 earlier this year. So we're growing. Remember to like, subscribe, review, all that stuff. Get all that stuff out of the way. If you don't know me by now, I am your host with the most timeless hands. I am Thomas Simple FF. You should know me by now. And on screen, right here to my right is my ever pounding the table for as many backup running backs as possible. It is FF_RTDB, the king of the streaming running back.
Hell yeah, man. What a week. I mean, look, I'll just be honest, like best week of my entire Dynasty life. I mean, you have known me and played Dynasty with me for as long as I started playing Dynasty. So you can attest this because this is year 4 of us playing Dynasty together. I mean, I don't think that I've ever had all of my guys perform at the same time so effectively. That was actually completely nuts. AJ Brown was the wide receiver 1 overall on the week. Tony Pollard goes over 30 points. Deontay Foreman goes over 30 points. It was just all my dudes. Herbert freaking scores a touchdown. Dobbs is making acrobatic catches on Sunday Night Football. It was honestly wild. DJ Moore as a breakout game. Even the unlikely guys were doing it. So it was honestly so fun. And I mean, there was something in there for everybody. It was just such a fun, high scoring week that I feel like almost no matter who your favorite players are, no matter who your most rostered players are, you had somebody do something really cool that probably brought you some happiness. I wish every single Sunday was like that. That was so fun.
It was crazy. And I even remember tweeting, I was like, I hope everyone's ready for Jacob week. This is Jacob week. And I tweeted on early, it was either early on Sunday or on Saturday. If Dante Foreman goes for 15 to 18 points, I was going to lose my damn mind. And next thing you know, I'm running around the house just screaming because he scored that third. I could not, but let alone I started him everywhere. I had to put him in the lineup. Dante Foreman was my first. I stand for this player.
I know you've been a Deontay Foreman truther for so long,
and I got 1 week, man, and it feels really good. I got back to
get more weeks. I mean, I don't know. How do you put the genie back in the bottle? I'm sure Chuba will play more than, what was his name? Spencer Brown. Was that the other running back? I didn't know that was a person. I'm sure Chuba will play more than number 41, but I don't think the Foreman is giving that job away, man. He's come out, gave him the job, and he rushed for 100 yards immediately. He was awesome last year. I mean, he was really good when he came. He was great at Texas. He showed a lot when he came into the league. Obviously, he had the Achilles that completely derails his career. But I mean, last year was the first time that he had a real opportunity, and he balled. And then this year he comes in and he's balling. He's good. He's just good.
I absolutely love it, man. Feel good for him. And like you said, we got Antonio Gibson back from the dead, catching 7 passes. Ramondre Stevenson looks like a league winner, whom I also traded a 24-1 Shout out Jacob for that one. On that discussed home league team where he does not want anyone on his team.
And I'm still not last in max points.
I know. Well, you held good players for too long. I think that was it. But, hey, it's crazy. We're going to get to trades. Rigged, shout out to you. We got Lucas in the chat too because he doesn't know how to take a night off. Though watching Bachelor in Paradise. So shout out to you, still finding time for us. Where do you guys rank Claypool now? We're going to talk about that trade. We're going to talk about all the trades. Carolina Atlanta game was insane. Game of the year.
Ridiculous. DJ Moore was framed.
I was crying for DJ Moore when he dropped that pass. I was not like this. I even at Cam's Not Sober, someone we both talked to quite a bit, and I said DJ Moore is the best almost great receiver in the league.
Well, he made what,
good, and then he does one boneheaded thing. Like he has it seems like he has like a really bad play.
He made the catch of the year, and then he went off the field. And
no, not that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the huge drop. Like he had that huge drop on third and long. He made up for that. And you're like, oh man, this guy, like he had 14. I think he had 14.7 points. It's like, oh man, this guy is always so close to being so good. And then the throw, the catch, it was unbelievable.
That was the longest completion in the next gen stats era from PJ Walker. I mean, what a week.
A guy that had only hit 200 yards passing one other time in his career.
Been tracking the NFL. That is the longest completion.
That I did not know that. That's absolutely sick.
Look, longest, and sorry to be clear, like obviously not the longest complete, like the longest air yard completion, like in terms of where it was released and where it was caught. Yeah.
You know what? One of my other favorite stats was somebody had posted that this was Jimmy Garoppolo's, like it took how long to complete a pass in the air for 30 yards. It was like 52 games as a 49er, and Christian McCaffrey did it in the first game. Just it was just absolutely wild. It was just Christian McCaffrey gets the football version of the Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yeah, that was
is a goal and assist and a fight. Bonkers. This is a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown. The receiving touchdown was by accident. He was like, nah, there's nothing here. I'm just going to run straight. And Garoppolo finally did the right thing and just threw it there. It is absolutely crazy. I've been eating L's on my timeline about.
I'm very happy for your sake that you pivoted your bad CMC take into a good CMC
I did.
Take.
No, I pivoted the next day. Like I pivoted the next day. I had done 4 pods. I had done 7 tweets. I had made 3 trades or 4 trades for Christian McCaffrey, but that one tweet I made was the one that got circulated. And I just posted all of my rebuttals to how I changed it and the dates. I mean, it is what it is, man. It's, you say stupid shit sometimes when you're tilting on the internet, but hey, there's lots of news. There's lots of notes. We're going to get to like I said, we're going to get to the trades, but first I want to take a quick break because you've been hearing my voice probably a little too much. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to play a clip from the Full Tilt Devy show. That was last Wednesday, which will be tomorrow once again. And when we come back, we're going to play Not in My League. So sit tight for that. Here's a clip from last week's episode.
I think I finally figured out why everyone loves Will Levis. And if you look at the profiles with him and Josh Allen, they're very close to identical. Will Levis actually, might have the edge in the accuracy department. He definitely does. So I think that people actually think that he's going to beat Josh Allen. It worked for Josh Allen. He's this big 6'3", 6'4", 240-pound quarterback. And I think they just think Will Levis fits that archetype of this guy who's big. He's got the rushing upside. But to me, that's such a huge gamble. And I feel sorry for whatever franchise buys that lotto ticket thinking that that's going to happen. In my mind, he doesn't set himself apart from any of these other QBs in the 23 class. He does things all right. I'm going to be watching intently on Saturday when they take on Lucas's Volunteers, because I think that game is going to have extreme draft implications.
Oh
boy, did I enjoy watching Mr. William Levis on Saturday against Lucas and my Tennessee Volunteers.
The number one Tennessee Volunteers.
Number one. My favorite Will Levis tweet after that game. I wish that I had it pulled up so I could say the correct stats, but there was some SEC network tweet or something that was like Hendon Hooker or Will Levis have combined for like 40 touchdowns and 6 interceptions or something. But it was like Hooker had 1 and Levis had 5. And then Tennessee fans were like mad and trolling online. And then after the game, they were like Hendon Hooker and Will Levis combined for like 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions tonight. It was like all Hooker. It was like all the yards and touchdowns. And Levis was just
phenomenal. That's such a great troll job. And
what an awesome game it's going to be this weekend. I don't know why they had to be cowards and not rank Georgia 2 so that we couldn't get the game of the century tag. Instead, it has to be 1 versus 3, which is just ridiculous and a missed opportunity for marketing, but it's going to be very fun.
Michigan below Clemson, too. Just absolutely insane. And guess what? That's a little more college football talk than you would normally get. But guess what? With the Full Tilt Devy Show, I have been learning and following along with more college football. You should definitely be tuning into that on Wednesdays and be checking in the recap as well that Andy puts out at the beginning of every week, because college football is a hell of a good time. I'm loving it. Being in one Devy League has completely changed things. Look, we like to play this game called Not in My League, where we basically select a player each week that's under 50% rostered in Yahoo leagues. So I understand. The point is that I get it. You're all too sharp for these players to be on your waiver wire. That's not for you. This is just what's out there right now in Yahoo, and I get it. It wouldn't happen in my league. That's the whole point. We made this game for you. But this is how it's going to go. I am going to... We each picked a player, and there'll be blind bid on each player, and the winner of that player, whichever, we all have to drop one. We roster 3 guys. We'll explain it at the end of the year. We tally a total. It's a great time. So far, I'm getting my ass kicked, but it's great. So I'm going to name a player. We're going to hit a drum roll, and we will, Jacob will announce who wins it. So the first player that was put up on for waiver claim was Mr. Donta Foreman, and the winner of Donta Foreman is
this guy right here. This guy right here got Donta Foreman for $6 roonies. Donta Foreman for $6 roonies. I have now dropped Latavius Murray, who's one of 17 starting running backs for the Denver Broncos. So I will be adding Donta Foreman to my team of Garrett Wilson and Kenneth Walker, my first place team in this particular game. Certainly not the other game we play, of Garrett Wilson, Deontay Foreman, and Kenneth Walker. Who's the next one?
Okay, next up we have Nyheim Hines, the new Buffalo Bills running back. The winner is...
For $2, it goes to you. You won Nyheim Hines. You won Nyheim Hines, the new member of the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
You're dropping Tyler Algier, who got you on the board last week. He got a big hit last week, but his time has now come with Patterson presumably coming back.
Trade him away.
And he will now take a seat on the Gus bus alongside George Pickens. Your team is now Hines, Gus Edwards, and George Pickens. And who's the last waiver option this week?
Please go trade Algier for a second round pick while you can right now. The next player in not in my league is a wide receiver who might get a little bit of a bump with TJ Hockenson shipping town. Khalif Raymond, the winner of Mr. Raymond in Detroit is
nobody. Nobody bid on Khalif Raymond. Just kidding. You technically did bid on Khalif Raymond, but you stated to me that the nature of your waiver priority was such that you would be taking maximum one player this week. I did not bid on Khalif Raymond. Billy did not bid on Khalif Raymond. So nobody gets Khalif Raymond. For reference, Billy's team stands at Khalil Herbert, who got on the board last week. Justin Fields also hit last week, and Isaiah Pacheco. So as it currently stands, I'm up top, followed by Billy, followed by Tom. But we got a lot of hits last week. We had Garrett Wilson hit in the top 24, Kenneth Walker barely making it into the top 24, Tyler Algier, top 24 running back, and then Billy gets the double with Fields, the top 12 quarterback, and Billy gets Herbert as a top 24 running back. And talk about impressive. Khalil Herbert is a top 24 running back on the year, despite starting one game, which is pretty crazy. He's just been balling, and he's sixth in the NFL in rushing yards as a backup running back. It's
insane. It's absolutely nuts that they still feed Montgomery. Raid, we'll get to Latavius Murray when we get to the trades. Look, that'll conclude not my league. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we are going to get into the trade deadline. We are going to do our player picks towards the end because it's just the two of us. I'll just quickly read off Billy's picks, even though he's in the league. He's not here, so fuck him. It doesn't matter. He doesn't get a say. So I'll quickly read through his. Jake and I will break ours down. We'll head to that at the end. We want to get to the real meat of the old episode here. So sit tight. Here's another clip, and we'll be right back.
You'd be out of your mind if you just said, like, oh, I'm out on Quinn Ewers right now because of that one game.
I agree with that. Like, I'm not out by any means, but like he was definitely moving up into that top tier. I never had him in that top tier like people wanted him to be, or at least some people. But he's dropped from that and not already being in the top tier. So like I'm not out. He's fine. Like he's still in that like playable, like draftable kind of player, but I need to see a bounce back here or else it's going to be not great. Now I will say compared to his counterpart that, when he was out, like he is helping the Xavier Worthies, the Jatavian Sanders, like he's actually helping those players more like by hitting them. But man, that was a rough game.
Rough game or not, Quinn Ewers is an absolute baller. He's a baller. He's a straight up baller.
Yeah, I'm excited for 2024. Him and Caleb, that'll be fun.
Oh, just unbelievable. I drafted Algier late in my main league.
I mean, he's paid off. He's paid off, right? You got a month. You got a month as a starting running back. I mean, that's what I think about Algier. Honestly, I think that realistically, he had a month-long opportunity to pull away from Caleb Huntley. And he didn't really. He didn't in terms of volume. He didn't really in terms of efficiency. He ultimately was not providing so much value that they were like, oh, we need to make this guy the workhorse, right? They used him as the plurality back of a 3-person committee. I'm sure he's still going to be involved when Cordero Patterson comes back, but it's going to be Patterson's show there, getting the high value touches. And then we'll see Algier and Caleb Huntley might mix in. I think that when you're looking at Algier, right, we're talking about a day 3 running back. Like there's really 2 paths to paying off for day 3 running back. He kind of did it already, right? You get a month where he gets to be the lead back. That's awesome. That's honestly, quite frankly, like probably worth a round 3 rookie pick, like the 4 weeks that you already got. So that's good enough. But yeah, I would trade him. I mean, trade him for even another round 3 pick if you really have to, because he's going to be a backup at this point. He was fine, but he did not show enough, in my opinion, to where Atlanta, where if Arthur Smith is back there next year, and it looks like he will be, he obviously wants to run the piss out of the football, quite literally. Like they're going to be investing in running back next year. I
trading for Derrick Henry. They're trading for Derrick Henry,
right? Like I think they're going to, with this free agency class and this draft class, right? Like we're talking about this, like these are the free agents available, and Atlanta couldn't do anything this year because they've been cap strapped for the last couple of years, eating up bad contracts. But they're going to have a little bit more room to maneuver coming forward. I mean, we're talking about Saquon Barkley as a free agent running back. We're talking about Kareem Hunt, Miles Sanders, Tony Pollard. We're going to see what happens with Zeke and Aaron Jones. They might even hit, potentially even a Dalvin Cook or a Joe Mixon. You never know. And then we're talking about all these 2023 running backs. Tyler Algier is not making it out of this offseason alive as a lead back. There's just no chance. So, I would be very happy to move Algier. If you can do something like a 23-3 in Algier for a 24-2, that I'd even be pretty down with.
Smash. And there's somebody out there that's willing to trade you a second for Algier. You just got to go looking. That's it. And then we got Stevenson too. Traded Fournette for Curtis Samuel and James Cook. Guess what? We're going to talk James Cook because it's a sad day. It's a sad day for people like me who really like James Cook. James Cook had his bucket. Let's talk about that trade right now.
Yeah, let's start there because we're going to go through.
So let's go with that.
The Bills their never-ending search to find a safety deposit box for their dump offs that they don't throw continues. Can we just start there? Is it not like really weird that the Bills are so obsessed with this specific type of running back? Like, so it's been pretty much confirmed. Like it's been confirmed by Travis Etienne himself that the Bills were like, we are drafting you when we're on the clock. Yep. And then he of course went to Jacksonville. So they were going to take him. And he was generally viewed as the pass catching option of the elite 3 in that draft class. Yeah, I'm sure he probably would have been used a lot more than how they're going to use Nyheim Hines, but that was certainly part of what they wanted to do. They end up just rolling with Singletary last year, did not perform particularly well in the passing game, although he performed pretty well in the running game. And this year, then they come into this offseason and they're like, okay, we need this. There were some rumors out there. They were poking around McCaffrey and Barkley earlier in the year. Who knows how much truth of that. But we know they wanted to sign J.D. McKissick. They basically agreed to terms with J.D. McKissick. He then decides to spurn them at the altar, goes back to Washington.
Terrible career move.
Then they force a pick on James Cook in round 2. And you know what? I think I like James Cook as a football player. I didn't like where he was drafted. I think he's a cool football player. I think he's interesting. I think that he didn't get a fair shake. Really bizarre draft pick. Like they took him earlier than really anybody was anticipating him going. No other running back goes after him until the 3rd round compensatory selections. And he was really undersized. So they go and overdraft James Cook, and then they never give him a real opportunity. Like I'm not a James Cook guy, But I'll be the first to say, like, James Cook was done dirty. Like they decided that they wanted this role, and then they went and replaced him in this role, presumably, without really giving him any chance to play it. Like all he really got to do was play some garbage time against Green Bay and some garbage time against Tennessee. He looked great whenever he had the opportunity, but they never let him have that real satellite passing down role. So do they do it with Hines? Like it's so weird because they keep being so insistent on getting Singletary out of that role, but then they never use any of their other backs in that role. Like they just keep bringing in contenders for it. And they're like, yeah, we'll just stick with Singletary. It's really strange. It's like a person who is like, I'm going to set this new workout plan, and they like buy a membership to a gym, and then they like don't work out, but then they're like, okay, I'll just buy a membership to a different gym. It's the gym that's the issue. And they're like, then they still don't work out. And they're like, okay, fine, I'll buy an elliptical. Right. And then they never use the elliptical, and then they buy the Peloton, and they never use the Peloton. It's like, maybe it's you, right? Maybe it's you, Bills. Maybe you just want to keep playing Devin Singletary, no matter how many other running backs you bring in. Maybe it's you. It's strange, but I don't know. I think James Cook, I mean, I'm going to be sending out some offers because to me, he still has like a little bit outside. And like, I saw him literally get traded for JaMychal Hasty. So I would be willing to send out some extreme low ball offers for James Cook. I'd offer Tyler Algier for James Cook. I would do that essentially.
And here's why I think it's weird. They sent Zach Moss the other way, which I think is hilarious. So
I'm sure that got the deal over the line. I guarantee you, Chris Ballard like, oh, I don't know, I won't do it. Give me Zach Moss on line too.
Enjoy Zach Moss and Indy. Jacob, I know how much you're gonna love that. But one thing I will say is I don't know if they bring Singletary back. So that's where you look at someone like James Cook in this. Like Nyheim Hines is on the team. His contract was ridiculous when the Colts signed him. He's attached to the Bills now, unless they just let him go. I'm not a contract expert, but I'm pretty sure that contract carries over. So Nyheim Hines is what's that?
Which is this for Hines?
Yes.
Hines, so, you can get it out of Hines for very little dead cap money after this year if they want.
Okay, so do they bring Singletary back? Do they bring Hines back? Is James Cook the last back standing? At that point,
they just signed Saquon Barkley.
I mean, Potts again. An offseason is an offseason, but this is why you go and you send low ball offers for a player who just absolutely got crushed. I've acquired some Sky Moore. I've acquired some Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney is a trade we're going to talk about because we didn't get a chance to last week because it happened after our show. Yeah. But it wasn't trade deadline, but I still want to talk about it because apparently he's the next Tyreek Hill, and I'm kind of overhearing that.
Deadline adjacent, at least.
Yeah, exactly. It's relative anyway. It fits a trade deadline circumference. Yeah. Oh, here you go, Jacob. Why do you think Algier has low value in Atlanta when coach is going to run all day, every day? He's still very good using the flex, correct? Question.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Have you enjoyed starting Caleb Huntley every week? Like, I think you can put him in the flex, I guess. But I mean, he's basically just been a flex play currently, and Patterson hasn't been there. Like Patterson's going to be the one getting the high value touches, right? He's going to be playing most of the goal line roles. So like, do I think Algier will still get 10 to 12 carries every week between the 20s? Probably. Can you flex that? Sure. But is that like providing any value over replacement? Like not a ton. So I'm not saying drop him, but I wouldn't be like excited to put 10 to 12 carries, probably limited pass downs, limited goal line work in my flex. So I don't even know if they'll get that. I mean, maybe they'll split it three ways with Huntley and Patterson.
Yeah, here's why I wouldn't, even if you look at just Tyler Algier's season, RB 58, 57, 25, 56, 39, 27, and then RB 13. His best game, and that was saved on a reception, a little dump off that he very slowly rumbled into the end zone for, and it completely saved his week. I think that there are receivers out there that you can play on a whim. You can go play Demarcus Robinson and end up with a better week than Algier right now. And he's a day three back. The story behind day three backs is it's forever told and it's forever true. And we just think he's going to get replaced. If you're using him in the flex right now, it might be time to start acquiring first round picks for some.
And he's been mid. Like he's at 0.08 rush yards over expectation for attempt. So like basically directly average. Like to me, if I'm looking at a day three back that I want to invest in, especially one that doesn't look locked into like a lead role going forward, I want them to be special, right? Like I want them to at least be like a Dameon Pierce or a Mondre Stevenson, where they're laying claim to a job and elevating their stature, right? He's not even pulling away from Caleb Huntley. So I'm not like I said, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if you want to keep him over a third, that's fine. But if you can use him to get into round 2 pick range, I would definitely do so. I don't think he's a asset that's irreplaceable.
Algier is a plotter. It's just what he is. Like, I'm sorry. It's just from everything that we've seen, he's a plotter. Again, his yards over expected, everything about him. Everyone looks really fast when there's no one around him to tackle him. It's just the lay of the land. But just real quick for Aneem Hines, are you playing him every week in a flex spot? Let's say
probably not.
I would agree. I think
maybe, I don't know.
I think more than likely with how they deploy him, this is worse for him than what was waiting for him in Indy. Trade number
weird though, like it'll be a really fun offense. Is if I don't wish any ill will on him, but if Singletary got hurt and they had to play Hines and Cook as their only running backs, like would they ever run?
I don't think so. I think they
I guess Josh Allen would run.
They barely run now. Only 2 quarterbacks lead the team in rushing. Right?
The smallest backfield of the entire NFL.
Josh Allen. It's just how it is. Next trade I kind of want to talk about, we can hit on it really quick, is the Jacksonville Jaguars acquiring Calvin Ridley.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I want to talk about this one and why. Like, I get it. So I remember when Calvin Ridley was this hot button topic on the Bird app, and in our group here, even on this program, talking about Calvin Ridley's a top 15, top 12 wide receiver, and I went, nah, bro. I don't think he is. And I don't think he's going to come back off a year off, go to Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, and all of a sudden just completely blow up once again. Trevor Lawrence might not be good. I think that's something to very much look for. He's inconsistent. He's not. We don't know what he is, but we know he likes to throw to the slot. Calvin Ridley's not coming in and playing the slot on this team, and he's not exactly a deep burner.
No, he's not. He's a possession guy. He's not a yards after the catch guy. He's not a dynamic guy.
Exactly. So
I need an outside receiver. Like they're not keeping up with the Joneses.
No, but
Zay and Marvin are not getting it done.
I think Zay will still be there. I don't think Marvin might, but I think this is going to be a very weird offense for him to be around, and the instant elite status for Calvin Ridley, like I am seeing. They freed Ridley. Ridley's not even free from himself right now. Like, he's not even free from his own suspension. So we can't really know what's going to happen. My question to you is, how much are you acquiring, if at all? Because I know you're injured, old, and suspended.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like the.
He's not even old. People keep saying he's old. He's like 27.
He will be. I believe he'll be 28 when he plays.
Yeah, he'll be 28 when he plays. He's not like people. The way people talk about him, it's like he's one step from the retirement.
Because he came out when he was 370.
That's true.
So.
He's actually still going to be playing on his rookie contract, which is a crazy thing because he came out very old, and then his year doesn't toll because he was suspended for the full year. So he'll be on his rookie contract at age 27. He's like Brandon Weeden or Najee Harris. So I think Calvin Ridley is definitely he's a guy. I'm honestly kind of bummed that he got traded. I didn't think that he was going to get traded till the off season.
Me either.
And so I had like every week I literally am like, man, I need to just start making some universal Calvin Ridley offers, either just like offer some second round picks out there, or more realistically, what I was hoping to do is just use him essentially as like the second round pick type return for, any veteran wide receiver that I wanted to sell certain teams that had Calvin Ridley. But every week I'm just like, I'll do that next week. I got time. I got the whole off season. No, I don't. So those days are over. I'm probably going to be in a holding pattern with Ridley for now because I don't want to send a 1 for him. And I think right now people are going to be pretty excited about his prospects. And so I don't imagine that you're going to be able to get him at round 2 value at this moment. So I think probably the move with Ridley, if you're looking to acquire, in my opinion, is just let it sit for a couple weeks. If somebody like puts him on the block or whatever, maybe reach out and have a chat with them. But otherwise, I would let it sit for a couple weeks and then reach out to the competitive teams that have Ridley and, see what they need. Offer them something that they could use for their team to win this year. Maybe you get Ridley in return. Maybe that's how you get him at that below round 1 pick value. I think if you just hit up somebody who's been sitting on Ridley. I mean, I had this happen to me in a league. I literally traded this guy for Ridley in like March. Or whatever it was that he got suspended. I probably did the trade a week later. I gave him my 23-second for Ridley like that day. He reaches back out today. He offers me Russell Gage, Bennett Skoranek, and Mac Hollins for Ridley. I'm like, I bought Ridley from you. I bought Ridley from you after he had already been suspended. like now he already has a new home. Like I'm happy. Like I'm not looking. I'm quite pleased so far with the return on my investment. I'm not looking to sell now for a bunch of dudes. So yeah, I would say like look what the person paid. Right? Don't offer them less than what they paid for. Whatever somebody bought him for, or where they drafted him in the spring, they probably like him more today than they did then. It's been good news that he has value around the league and that he's playing. He's not Will Fuller. So I think that it's a good spot for him. He's playing with a potential quarterback that can grow. There's nobody in this wide receiver room that is particularly imposing. I mean, Christian Kirk's always really been a better number 2 supporting wide receiver. The interesting thing with this offense, like you kind of mentioned, is that all their best players like don't play X. Like it's kind of weird that you get this offense where like Kirk is a slot wide receiver, Ridley's a flanker, Ingram, if he's still there, is going to be the tight end, and Etienne's a running back. Like that's all their offensive weapons. Their X wide receivers probably Zay Jones, but he's not really going to be a big factor, I don't imagine, in the offense, which is kind of a crazy setup.
Doug Peterson's used a traditional X receiver in the past, so we'll see. Yeah, exactly. So, but Rigged, I love that move for Wrigley. He's going to show out in a Jags uniform. He could boom. What is his boom, though? Because his only boom year, he was the wide receiver 4 in points per game. That is elite. He had 9 touchdowns. He was wide receiver 26 and 18 in his first 2 years. That's with 93 targets. We expect that probably going to hit well over 100 targets, you'd suspect. It's going to be his first year coming back from suspension on a new team and a new system. I mean, he was averaging 14.2 points per game, which was his 3rd best in the first 5 games that he played. But remember, that was because of early in the year.
On fantasy points, like under expectations. Because I remember last year, Ridley was like kind of doing the CeeDee Lamb thing where we were like, this guy never earned enough targets. Now he's earning all the targets, but he's not converting it to fantasy points. And like, I mean, maybe it was just because his mind was elsewhere and he wasn't like making those plays at the catch point or something. But he was earning volume last year. So I agree. I'm pretty optimistic about Ridley.
On a Matt Ryan pass heavy team. So hopefully Trevor Lawrence
can this year with garbage receivers.
Correct. So we'll see. I like the move for him because obviously the better situation than playing for Arthur Smith. Like, dear God. And he doesn't have Drake London and Kyle Pitts to compete with. So obviously this is a good for him. I'm going to make trade offers, but I'm hesitant to do he's been released, he's freed, he's a top tier wide receiver immediately. Because again, the talent rolling over from 2023 plus some second year wide receiver, like it's going to be a mix. Receivers already the hardest position to rank at this point. I just think that it's going to get even messier. So I'm definitely, like you said, willing to put out some low ball offers. Can we talk about we're going to move on. Can we talk about a player that I was not in on all off season and I got laughed at by nerd Twitter? Chase Edmonds, a Bronco. When Chase Edmonds went to Miami, I know you specifically.
I did like Chase Edmonds.
You specifically, it was Chase Edmonds' season to get first. It was he changed his number, adjust the ranks. Then he took a picture with the red visor.
I was sick.
Adjust the ranks.
That was really good.
And he doesn't produce. He gets.
I think if he still had the red visor, he would have been better this year.
Maybe. Hey, visor changes, helmet changes, who knows? But now then he signs in Miami, and everyone's like, "Oh, Chase Edmonds is the back." And then he gets dusted by Raheem Mostert. Yes. And now he's on the Broncos. And now we get to rotate Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray, and Chase Edmonds. This
will be quick. George Payton came out and said that they're going to be running a co-starter committee of Melvin Gordon and Latavius Murray on early downs, and that Chase Edmonds will be playing passing downs. So basically, they're going to go back to how it was before Boone went on IR. So Edmonds is going to play the Boone role, which is not enough to start, but it's enough to make the others not very startable.
Yes, it's going to be annoying and gross.
So basically, once it got down to a 2-man the last couple of weeks, it's been kind of nice because Latavius has been mainly the guy getting the carries, but Melvin still gets enough carries, and then he gets all of the passing down work. And it's kind of like the saddest, dustiest Chubb Hunt-esque split imaginable. But now it's just you can't. I don't think you can play any Denver back because at this point, Evans is going to have 2 or 3 targets a game. He's useless, and then you're just saying, okay, which of Melvin or Latavius falls in the end zone this week? Because otherwise, they're going to have 10 carries for 40 yards.
Yeah, I think it's disgusting gross. So I just wanted to take this moment to shine this giant W on my Chase Edmonds take.
You get the W
from
there.
The offseason. I'm going to do that. And this is the last thing I'm going to say on Calvin Ridley. You comp him to AB, Antonio Brown. Quite possibly one of the best wide receivers we've ever seen play. Complete nutbag, But I'm not comping Calvin Ridley to Antonio Brown. There's no, it's not possible. No, I'm sorry.
I mean, I saw people even making the Michael Thomas comparison. They were like,
no.
And I mean, Michael Thomas's peak was far higher and far more prolonged than Ridley. I mean, the nice side of this, I guess, is that like there was a very legitimate and still is very legitimate questions about Michael Thomas's physical health, right? Calvin Ridley has not had the injury issues that Michael Thomas has. So that's
sure.
I like Calvin Ridley, but like to me, he's not a dynamic player. He doesn't create big plays down the field, and he doesn't create big plays after the catch. He's a target earner, but he's to me more of like a, I don't know, somewhere between like a Deontay Johnson and a Keenan Allen type of player than he is, a AB figure. I mean, AB was a dynamic weapon that could create plays all over the field.
I think maybe if you want to take a Pittsburgh wide receiver, I guess now Kansas City, a Juju-esque type player, maybe at his best, right? With the production.
He's a little better than Juju, but
right. But I think right around there, he's not going to be a top 24 wide receiver for me next year. Calvin Ridley, there's no way.
I think I'll probably rank him as a low-end wide receiver 2 next year, or maybe a mid wide receiver 2.
We'll see what I'll see what the 23 class has in store, but I don't think I can do it at all. Okay, next trade. Who you want to pick up next? Let's keep.
Yeah, let's talk about Claypool. Or yeah, sure, Tony. Sure.
Okay, we'll end on Claypool because that to me is the big one. Not even Hockenson. We'll do what time is it? 51. We got about 20 minutes left. We have time for Tony. We'll do Hawk because I think that one's hilarious, and then we'll end on Claypool. Okay, let's talk Kadarius, your boy. Well, first off, we want to tip our hat to Sky Moore. You did your best.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
You couldn't field a punt to save your goddamn life. As a man who returned punts for 7 years in actual competition, it's not an easy job. But when you scuff it enough times, the team hates you.
Yeah.
So it's bad.
Stop putting rookies on special teams. There's no upside to it. You can't score fantasy points on special teams, but you can make mistakes and get your coach to hate you. It's bad.
Yeah, especially returning punts. Like there's a reason. You know how we always go like, why is Cooper Kupp back returning punts? Why is Antonio Brown back returning punts? It's because they know what they're doing back there. Having a rookie back there is just absolutely asinine. Returning kicks is different. That's a whole different skill. But stop putting rookie receivers and running backs back there to return punts.
It's
just stop it.
Terrifying thing to do. I can't imagine. Do you remember the Naeem Hines quote where he was like, "When I'm returning punts, like I don't value my life" or something? It was like this insane quote. And I was like,
that's how you're taught. That's how we were taught to return punts. Like just expect my specialty my special teams coach once told me, because we had a new special teams coach when I was in the junior team here in Winnipeg, and I was new special teams coach. So I walked up to him, like, what are your tips? Like, got any tips? He goes, expect to die. And I went, thanks, coach. Like that was it. There's no fear. Expect to die every time. So I can't imagine that in the NFL. But anyway, so Sky Moore had to die for now for Kadarius Toney to potentially live. This wide receiver room's a fucking mess.
By the way,
it's an
honestly,
absolute mess.
We brushed past it, but that is one thing too that I think people do underestimate about the Hines thing. I wouldn't be surprised if his impact on offense is less than you think. They only paid a 6th-round pick. He's a really good punt returner.
Yeah, exactly. These teams that trade for these guys, it's because they're thinking about real football, and I think we have to take that into consideration. If he rips off
140-yard punt return in a playoff game, then that's worth the 6th-round pick to them, even if he plays 0 snaps on offense.
If he doesn't fumble on special teams and pass blocks, I think they're going to be like, we like this guy. He was worth that 6th-round pick.
They have immediately updated their team depth chart to reflect him as their starting punt returner already.
Exactly. So I think you're right on that one. So all your leagues with points per return yards. There you go, Naeem Hines. But let's talk about Kadarius Toney. I want to keep
are also now the punt returner.
My point on this is going to be quick. My point is going to be on this real quick. I think that I think you're kind of holding him anyway, no matter what. Maybe you can sell him if you can for like a second. Sure. But that room is gross. MVS, Hardman, Juju, then Toney. Then, of course, you have Kelsey. They throw to Noah Gray. They use their running backs sometimes when they're not mad at them. And then now you have Toney. This is a mess. Like
so first of all, I'm just gonna put this out into the ether. I mean, I love Sky Moore, and I'm still not giving up hope for him in dynasty formats. I'm still keeping a candle on. I'll talk about it in a sec. First of all, if this happens this week, you can pull the clip, but I think that he's going to be a healthy and active this Sunday because Kadarius Toney is going to come in as their punt returner. I'm sure he'll play some snaps on offense, probably not a whole lot. It's a very complex.
They'll have a package for him or something.
Yeah. Obviously, Hardman, MVS, and Juju are obviously the main guys there right now. And then you add in Christian Watson or Sky Moore. Really, it's one of them for the 5th spot. And with Sky Moore no longer being a punt returner, he doesn't have any special teams value. How much are they going to want to rotate him in? Maybe, but I think that it's probably 50-50 on whether or not he dresses this game. And we're going to have, another conversation about that on Twitter. So what I would say basically is, if you've made up your mind on Sky Moore that you're out on Sky Moore, I would probably sell low then in the next 4 days, because I think there's a very real chance that he's healthy scratched on Sunday. If you want to hold long on Sky Moore, I'm holding most of my shares. I don't anticipate being offered any early seconds or anything like that. Then hold long. But I don't think it's a situation where you can expect to sell for more in like a couple of weeks than you will now. Like, you are holding into the offseason, I think, at this point, if you're holding Sky Moore.
I've tried to package him with like another 2nd round pick just to get another player, and it's worked a couple of times. I'm holding on to 2 shares. One I tried to trade to you, but I just missed being able to do it by a day, by an actual day. I tried. So mad. I'm so mad I went to bed early that day, because I think we would have got it done if I didn't. But damn. But with Toney, I think the expectation, and you see it on every time there's a receiver thing in Kansas City, the next Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is proving there's one of him. He is one of one, and he is him. Like, Tyreek Hill was my favorite. You on this show? That's too high. Oh, it's too high for Tyreek Hill. Was it? I was happy I didn't fade. There's not going to be another one.
That guy's running curl routes 50 yards down the field because he's dusting corners by 15 yards, getting underthrown by 20, and coming back to the ball to moss it, dude. It's insane.
He's the drag route king as well. Like, I think he's the absolute drag route. There's not going to be another one.
He's untackleable.
So we can't say. And Kadarius Toney was really good in that stretch for New York last year.
Kadarius Toney can do like one thing that Tyreek Hill also does, which is that both of them have the same ability where, like, when they catch a 5-yard pass, it like looks like they're going to get tackled immediately, and then insanely they like make like 5 other dudes miss, and then they get a first down out of nowhere. Like, Kadarius Toney definitely has that skill set. Like, he is one of the best short area quickness agility players ever. I mean,
absolutely.
Like, and look, you can say small sample, whatever. I don't care. I needed a sample of like 1. Like, you watch that game against the Saints and you just watch like what he's doing. Like, people don't move that way. Like, it's absolutely absurd. He's going to be probably a really incredible punt returner for them, assuming that he can catch the ball. But once he has the ball, he's probably going to do a lot of cool shit. I think they'll have a package for him immediately, right? I mean, Eddie Reed's very creative. He already uses Hardman in a lot of this stuff really effectively. And Kadarius Toney's a more dynamic player than Hardman. So I think he's going to get a lot of these jet sweeps. He's going to get some of the tap passes. They're going to do some tunnel screens, some bubble screens, whatever. He'll have a limited package this year where I think they're just going to try and get the ball in his hands, let him do shit in space. That's going to have real football value for them. Again, these are teams competing for Super Bowl. If Kadarius Toney plays 10 wide receiver routes, let's say he plays 15 routes in every playoff game, and 10 of those are him running a fake jet sweep from one end of the field to the other and not receiving the ball, but getting a linebacker to run with him for a little bit and then not run for the guy that actually gets the ball. And then the other 5 are screen passes or tap passes or whatever to him, or end arounds. And, he's able to break 1 or 2 for a couple first downs. That's a successful trade, for how the Kansas City Chiefs are operating. I don't think he's going to be an every week guy unless there's a couple injuries. MVS has an every down role because he provides something that the rest of their team doesn't. He's the one that gets downfield. He's the run blocking receiver. He's not a very good fantasy receiver, but he has an NFL role. Juju's their most reliable option. I think Hardman and Toney will rotate in and out. But I think where you potentially see the dynasty value for Toney is of course, in 2023, if he can acquaint himself well with this team, if he can not be a lunatic, if he can, be a guy that coaches like to have around, show off some of his natural talent. Juju's not under contract after this year. McCole Hardman's not under contract after this year. The wide receiver free agent class is quite poor this year. They just dealt picks for Toney. They just spent a pick on Sky Moore. MVS under contract, but it's a very outable contract if they want to get out of it. Maybe they don't, but if they do want to, they could. And Tony's going to have an opportunity to earn a real role there next year. I think so is Simon Moore. Because the Chiefs ultimately, I think it would be very counterintuitive to me for the Chiefs to have made this bet this year of saying, you know what, we're not going to pay Tyreek Hill, one of the best preeminent wide receivers in the NFL, all this money, because we have Mahomes and we have Andy Reid. And so we can find a way to create great offense without an elite wide receiver option. And they've been successful. They have the second most efficient offense in the NFL with this collection of dudes. And so then to be like, we didn't pay Tyreek Hill $25 million a year, but we're going to pay Juju $15 million a year. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't make any sense. And they're not going to. They wouldn't go in with that plan of mind to be like, we didn't want to pay the best wide receiver, but now we're just going to pay this other guy. No, they're going to keep piecing it together. And so I think Sky Moore and
rookie contract
pieces to this puzzle. But yeah, Tony. I mean, he's going to have 2 more years of cost control. He showed a lot in a small sample, and his issues have been injury, mental, whatever. It's worth a shot. So am I selling Tony for like a third? No. I'd like to cash some shares out for seconds because I don't think that opportunities to sell a player who hasn't done much in 2 years for a second come around all that often, quite frankly. So
that's what you were drafting him for anyway. Like it's so often a player comes back to their linear value.
Exactly, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. So I'd get out for some 2s, but I think there's legitimate upside. I mean, I thought there was a lot of legitimate upside coming into the year, and it's not like he's done anything this year where it's like, oh, he's bad. Like, he obviously didn't get along well with the coaching staff. That's evident. They traded him, and then he got hurt, and is he always going to not get along with people and get hurt? That seems like it's pretty possible. But in terms of what he's shown on the field, like, he's never played and not been effective. So it's going to be fun.
No, I agree. The one difference between Kadarius Toney and Tyreek Hill for me is they can both do that, like, catch, make a bunch of people miss. Just Kadarius Toney's like hamstrings don't stay together after he does it, where Tyreek's does. So maybe, and who knows, maybe the injuries things was like I'm on the Giants and I don't want to be thing. We don't know. We have no idea. So we'll see. It tends to be a new contract and a trade for an unhappy player cures a lot of injuries.
Right, his hamstrings seem to be better.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I like the player, and I'm happy to see him move on. Real quick, we can do Hockenson. I don't think this one is like it's a big deal in real football. I'm happy that we can finally put the super small, like the size of a slot receiver with the athleticism of a fullback to bed in Irv Smith. Like that's finally done. It's done.
It's over. Yeah.
It's so done. And I'm happy. I cashed out almost every share I have.
I had 2 shares left last week. I sold 1 more for a 24 third.
Money.
And I think I have 1 left that I assume I'll now take this last one to the grave, I suppose. But that or I'll drop him for James Mitchell.
I think that I don't think Hockenson's value really changes much personally. I think at his usage and everything, I think he'll still continue to be just like a mid-tier, very meh tight end. What I will be interested in, and I'll say this and I'll say it real quick. Lucas said this on the Full Tilt Shorts over on the YouTube page. He did a reaction video. He absolutely crushed it. Go check that video out. I think this is going to be a little bit of trouble for Adam Thielen and his inside the 10 touchdown variance. If you're going to use Hockenson, you would think that's where it's going, but I don't know. I have no idea how they're going to use him. If we want to do helmet scouting with O'Connell, maybe they use him like Hate Crime Higbee, and he's just like a dump off tight end screen guy from now on. But he's more athletic than Higbee. I'm pretty sure. I think it's a mess. Obviously, he's the top 10 tight end in Dynasty, but that's just saying is what it is. It's just I don't know. Nothing changes for him for me. I don't want him in the first place. I don't want him now. I think that's the easiest way I can put it.
He's never been a dynamic player other than like 2 games in his career where he looked like he was like prime George Kittle, but all the other games that he's played, he's not been that. And he's been a volume play, but he's never been able to earn like the level of volume of like a Zach Ertz. That's like Zach Ertz is pretty much the only tight end I can remember that's been like a truly elite option at the position for any period of time when he was with the Eagles without actually being a dynamic player, without being able to do more than basically catch and fall down. And Hawk, like he's probably just Hunter Henry, right? Like he's a fine player. He's not a bad player. He's a good NFL player. He's helpful, but like he's probably not that different than like a Hunter Henry, a Tyler Higbee. So to me, he's just now kind of in the morass of tight ends. him and Fant, like supposedly, go back to the 2019 class.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate. I mean, look, here's tight ends I'd rather have than TJ Hockenson if you can still sell him on name brand value. Okay. So I would gladly cash him in for one of the disappointing older gentlemen, George Kittle or Darren Waller. I still think they have higher upside than TJ Hockenson. I would love to sell TJ Hockenson for injured David Njoku. He has flashed more just this year, frankly, than I think Hockenson has ever flashed his career. I would trade TJ Hockenson straight up for Greg Dulcich. I would have no issue with that. I think that
that might be getting a hot take time.
I think Greg Dulcich is like a top 6 dynasty tight end because tight end sucks. We know that tight end sucks. Think about the other options. We have Andrews, right? Elite, fantastic. We have Pitts, elite peripherals, finally produced this week. It'll happen eventually. Kelsey is a singular situation. He's the number one advantage in fantasy. Obviously, he's 34. But those guys. And then it's like there's really no other tight end that you feel like is giving you an advantage week in, week out, right? So to me, it's like who is the better bet to become that elite guy? Who's the best bet to hold all that value? And I think you can make an argument a number of different ways, but similar to a guy like Mark Andrews, really similar to a guy like Mark Andrews, Dulcich was a guy who had sufficient but not elite athleticism, but yet he was able to win in a downfield role playing off the line of scrimmage in college. He comes in as a 3rd-round pick. He comes in as a rookie. He's immediately efficient. He's immediately earning volume. I don't know. I'd rather just take a shot on that than go for these mid options that I can get the same production out of Tyler Higbee. So,
and I know that you don't have to do that. You can always get the plus on top. So I think that's you're gonna for sure be able to get a plus on top on name value for Dulcich. I really believe in most leagues, right? You obviously have sharp leagues. You have, however, other real diehard truthers, but I think with Hockenson, let's look at it. Let's look at him. Tight end 4 this year, he was averaging 12.2 points per game. That's a career high. Last year, 12.1 points per game, 11 points per game, 6.7 points per game his rookie year. It's not really impressive. You're absolutely right. So I think you're right. This doesn't change my opinion of him. This doesn't change his value to me in Dynasty. It just affirms being out on him, in my opinion.
Probably a downgrade in the sense that Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver on earth, and as much as I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's not Justin Jefferson, and the Lions didn't have any number 2 wide receiver at this point.
And let's just be straight up.
Thielen's a lot better than any of the other options.
This is great for DeAndre Swift. This is great for Amon-Ra St. Brown, and this will be great for Jameson Williams if he gets on the field. I think it really is the case. And I mean, I'm not gonna start spreading the word. I'll let you do that. But the Lions have another pretty athletic tight end.
Oh, baby.
That will now be your 3rd most rostered player in Dynasty as of tomorrow.
I pray that he's first, but we'll see. I might have blown my load a little too early, giving out the James Mitchell tweets before waivers go through. So maybe not. But look, James Mitchell through 3 years was one of the most productive tight ends in this class. He was, in terms of receiving yards per pass attempt, he was, after 2nd and 3rd year, really only behind Isaiah Likely and Greg Dulcich and Trey McBride in terms of his production profile. And what's fascinating about him as well, when you look at yards per reception, right? How are tight ends getting deployed? Are they dynamic downfield options? 2nd year out of high school, James Mitchell, 17.5 yards per reception. 3rd year coming out of high school, he was up at 17 yards per reception once again, right? That's the same kind of profile that drew me to being in on Greg Dulcich on draft season. That's the same type of profile that you're looking at in a Mark Andrews. These are the types of guys, Mike Gesicki, these are the types of guys that are fantasy friendly tight ends. So look, it could be totally nothing, but James Mitchell to me is a really fun bet. So bypass Brock Wright. I don't care about Brock Wright. He's a guy. Okay.
He's a guy.
There's a world that Brock Wright is a starting tight end for the rest of the year and for a little bit. That's totally fine. Whatever. Hockenson missed last year. What did Brock Wright do for you?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Agreed.
Right? There's no point. There's no upside there. Mitchell is either nothing probably, or he could be really fun. And like we always say, tight end sucks. So if you want to take a bet on someone, I would always be willing to take darts at athletic tight ends with dynamic abilities. So.
Nope, I agree. I was letting you get your shout out. And look, we're at an hour and 10. We still got to get through our player pick.
Oh, yeah. Let's run through real quick here.
Chase Claypool is now a Chicago Bear.
Oh, yeah.
I liked this move. I liked that the Bears did this. I don't like which pick they ended up trading away, but I think it ends up becoming whatever. They're obviously helping out Justin Fields, who's been elite the last 4 weeks, period, especially the last 2 or 3, absolutely elite. Now he gets a receiver that's big, he's fast. We don't know if he's necessarily good, but this is the first year of Chase Claypool's career where he hasn't commanded at least a 20% target share. This is the first one he was getting phased out. He had 305 snaps from the slot, which I don't know if that can be expected in Chicago with where they play Mooney. We don't know how it's going to work. All we know is that it is good for Justin Fields, thus likely good for Chase Claypool. Because we would say that Justin Fields better quarterback than what Chase Claypool has had. I think we're pretty good, especially when the play breaks down. Justin Fields is scrambling, big body, quick receiver that can be used in multiple ways. We saw the rushing touchdowns from Claypool, how the Pittsburgh used him. I think this is great for him. And I think he is a buy. I don't know what kind of bump you're going to be forced to pay to acquire him at this point. Or, as NBA Rigged had asked us, where we would rank him. I'm not totally sure yet. The dust hasn't settled enough for me to really sit there and be like, oh, he's my wide receiver blah, 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 on the year. I have no freaking idea. But as Lucas said, I like it better for Fields than for Claypool, maybe. Let's run through some thoughts of yours before I have to do one ad read and we do player picks.
I mean, Claypool's pretty mid. So, I don't think he's a needle mover. I think, he was a guy where it's if his value ever dropped to being worth a round 3 pick, I think that's good because I think he's a good NFL player. And anytime you can get a young, good NFL player for that, I would have been down. I don't think that he's very likely to be a difference maker in fantasy. I just think he's too limited of a player to be that. It's unlikely. But, could he be a wide receiver 2? Maybe. Could he be a wide receiver 3? Perhaps. Wide receiver 4? Most likely. I think that he's a fine player. To me, I'm more excited about it from a Fields perspective, similar to Lucas. People were panning this trade. I like this trade for the Bears. I understand that the higher ceiling move would be you draft a better wide receiver in round 2 next year than Claypool, and then you get cost control for 4 years. I understand that. This does not preclude them from that. They just got a second-round pick in the Roquan Smith deal. They still have their first-round pick. They could still use either of those on another wide receiver. I hope they use one on a receiver.
They traded their second, not the
right. No, but I'm saying they still have another second. They now had 2 seconds, so they gave one for Claypool. I'm saying they could still draft another wide receiver with their other second, or the first. I hope they draft an offensive lineman with the other of those 2.
Yes.
I mean, the way I look at it is this team ultimately at this point, it needs to. The number one goal of this team right now should be evaluating and developing Justin Fields, and so everything should be viewed through that lens, right? And to me, it's a little bit more important to secure that you're getting a real, actual NFL player in Claypool than taking the shot of maybe that higher ceiling option, the rookie pick, because I think you want to let Fields have an opportunity to play with real NFL players that aren't Equanimous St. Brown and N'Keal Harry. It's absurd. So Claypool is a real NFL player. How good he is, I'm not sure, but he's an actual starting NFL wide receiver. Now they have 2 actual NFL wide receivers. Okay. They still don't have a great one, but that's a start. They used to have 1 NFL player. Now they have 2 NFL players. That's improvement.
Yeah.
So
it definitely, when you're Justin Fields and you're looking out there and you see, okay, I got Darnold. That's pretty good. And you look and you think you're going to see N'Keal Harry and you're like, fuck. Or then you look and you're look over, is that Equanimous Saint shit? You're happy that it's not them. You look, you're like, oh, it's Chase Claypool. It's really good. I'm happy with that. Yeah. Velas fucking Jones. Jesus Christ. And I think who was it? JJ Zacharyson, friend of the show, former guest. Check that episode out. It was really good. I believe he said I couldn't resist tweeting that Chase Claypool will be 1 year younger than Velas Jones. So there's that. I mean, the Bears kind of saved themselves from drafting another shitty wide receiver next year. Maybe who knows? It could work out that way. We don't know, but I think you're right. This isn't really a needle mover for Claypool. Not for me. Not for you. Shouldn't be for most people. I think you should be happy that you can potentially move off of him if he's on your roster. I think I'd be more willing to hedge my bet that way than not if someone's willing to bite the bullet. But this is good for Justin Fields. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's important in this, is that it being good for Justin Fields. I think that's it for the trades. Anything else you want to add in before we get our player picks in?
No, I'm good. Let's do the picks.
All right, let's do it. First, before we do the picks this year, if you can't tell, right now Jacob is trying. He's growing his mustachio in. Shout out to you for that. I cheated because look, I understand you're not supposed to, but I already had to fight a fight with the wife to even allow the mustache, so it wasn't getting shaved off to grow in. So this is what you're getting. But anyway, it's it's in here. It's the effort. That's what matters. But this year, you can actually donate with Full Tilt over at Movember. You can head to Movember and you can search up Full Tilt Pod Network on the site and donate there. I'll also put the QR code. That'll also be up as well on the Bird app in the main tweet. It's also my pinned tweet at Thomas Tibble FF will be the same thing at Dynasty Tilt. But look, it's important. Movember is the leading charity changing the face of men's health. We want you to help join us together so we can make a difference in men's health. I think it's very important. This is not just for cancer. This is for mental illness, everything else. It's just a phenomenal cause. And this year, we as a group wanted to really try and do our part, whether it was with Brighter Skies and other charities that we've partaken in. Now we get the chance to do it with Movember, with you, with us. So again, donate. Every bit helps. It truly is amazing, and it goes to the right place. It's not a third party. It's coming straight from you to the site. You're not PayPaling us. There's no worry about it. Goes straight to them, and at the end of the day, that's what it's about. So phenomenal. Very happy to be doing that this year. I'm going to leave that up right there. Look, our player picks. We do this every week. We're going to get through this fairly quickly. So you, Jacob, I know you have a 4.5 hour long podcast that you have.
And then I got to write an assignment. So we got a triple header here. We got to do this pod. We got to do another one. We got to write.
Yeah, Sweat and Bullets is a routine 2.5 hour must listen. At 1 point, I suggest 1.25. Me personally. But like every week, we pick a quarterback outside of the top 15, a running back outside of the top 16, a wide receiver out of the top 24. And because it's an absolute hellscape, a tight end outside of the top 10, we tally the total points and pit it against each other. Last year, Billy absolutely dog walked us, so we changed the rules a little bit. And now he is back in the lead again, because why the fuck wouldn't he be? Coming up in third is 279.16 with Jacob. He had a very rough 2-week stretch. Put him behind. I am in second at 402.98, and Billy is leading the way at 416.52. Billy is not here. I will read his picks because he was ever so kind enough to put them in for me. I just realized I didn't put mine in yet. My bad.
I'll read Billy's and mine, and you can come up with yours in a hurry. So Billy is taking Taylor Heineke, fresh off of helping the Colts get a higher draft position. He's taken Khalil Herbert, which just warms my heart. He's taken Josh Palmer. Shout out to Canada. The Canadian day 2 wide receiver who did not get traded. And then he's taking a staple of the program, Evan Ingram. Can people just stop disrespecting Evan Ingram? Tom, Reed, you're just put in the same quarterback that I already picked.
Oh, my bad.
Can people just stop disrespecting Evan Ingram and just rank him as a top 10 tight end? He's been up in double-digit points like 3 or 4 weeks in a row now. All right, my picks. So that's Billy's is Heineke, Khalil Herbert, Josh Palmer, Evan Ingram. My picks, despite Tom just attempting to steal him a second ago, is Derek Carr, fresh off of his worst game of the year. Carr has been a solid QB2 option for the rest of this season. He gets a matchup that even Russell Wilson performed well in this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That could be a sneaky fun game with 2 quarterbacks coming off a down performance. I might be a little bit into that one in a DFS situation as well. I'm taking Antonio Gibson as my running back. All they needed to do was make Brian Robinson their starter, give him all of the boring touches that they used to give Antonio Gibson, and then all of a sudden they figured out how to use Antonio Gibson. He's been more involved in the receiving game. He's been running more routes than J.D. McKissick. And so despite losing his job, he's gotten a much better job. It's a more volatile option, but I will take Gibson. I love how they're using him in the receiving game, especially in and around the red zone. I will take Devonta Smith as my wide receiver in a matchup against Houston. I'm expecting Stingley to be the primary cover on A.J. Brown in this contest. And it seems like the Eagles know that depending on what they want to do in any given week, they can just have any of these 3 guys have a massive week. Like, it feels like they're just toying with teams. It's like last week they were like, let's just give A.J. Brown the big week. And this week they're like, all right, let's get Smith involved. So it honestly feels like whatever they choose to do, they will accomplish.
Like, I just want someone to keep up with them. Like, that's all we need.
Yeah, it won't be Houston this week. That's for sure.
No, I love that Taysom Hill is just forever inside the top 10 now. Like,
I know.
Someone posted that he's outscored Jonathan Taylor on the year, and that just feels so unbelievably disgusting.
That is sad. And you know what they say the definition of insanity is? It's doing the same thing and expecting different results. So I'm mostly so far behind because I keep taking these injured players who then don't play or get hurt. But I will do it again. Darren Waller, I thought he was going to play last week. It seemed like he was going to play. He got practiced all 3 days, but they said that they were going to give him one more week. I'll be honest. I have a lot of Waller in Dynasty. I was so happy that they gave him the extra week off because I felt like the odds of him re-aggravating his hamstring injury for seemingly a 4th time this year were very high if they rushed him back. I'm so happy that they gave him the extra week off. He would have done nothing because the entire offense did nothing last week anyway. He comes back in a nice, attractive matchup that Greg Dulcich just lit up. Hopefully, I think Waller has a nice week this week. To answer your question, that's an interesting one. I'm not a super big fan of either of those players, but I would probably take Courtland Sutton.
Same. I agree with that for sure. Don't love either. Don't love either. And yeah, those are good picks. And look, my super quick picks. Look, it's a lot to get this show put together sometimes, and I meant to do this, and then I completely forgot. So I'm going to rush through these. I'm taking Andy Dalton as my quarterback. It is Baltimore. But look, the team
love picking against your own team so much.
Olave, it's reverse jinxing. At least if I lose here, the Baltimore Ravens should win. But look, the Ravens did get Roquan. We don't know how ready he's going to be. They activated Bowser and the rookie they drafted, whose name is escaping me right now. But Andy Dalton has Olave, potentially Michael Thomas, Taysom Hill, and Alvin Kamara, so he could accidentally have a decent enough week for me not to absolutely regret this. And again, if the Ravens pick him off 4 times, I'm still happy, so whatever. I'm taking Devin Singletary, even though they traded for Nyheim Hines. Singletary still has a really good matchup. The Bills aren't a team that like to take the pedal off the gas, so hopefully he comes through. I'm taking Juju here. He's the first player outside of our zone. I'm going to take him. He could have a big game. I'm hoping he has a big game. Just needs a touchdown. That's all I need. And I'm actually going to take Isaiah Likely. Here's why. They have no fucking receivers in Baltimore outside of Duvernay, so there's no way Isaiah Likely is getting shut out. And the way this offense runs, he may end up scoring in the end zone. Worst case scenario, I'm like 50 points behind Billy. So it's make upable. This is what you get when you wait too long to put your picks in. You get the shittiest matchups. Tom, shout out to your Baltimore getting Roquan. I don't know. I would like to have not have traded a 2nd round pick for an off-ball linebacker, especially one that struggled for 2 years, but hopefully he's good. He helps solidify them. Him and Patrick Queen, maybe that means, I don't know, Chuck Clark can get the fuck off the field because, man, he makes me want to puke. And real quick, obviously we are with Underdog Fantasy, not forgetting it this time. If you haven't played Underdog Fantasy before, Pick'em is a great way to get more involved with your games, and you should be playing along with us. Every week we take 3 Underdog picks, we put them in, we enter them, and we encourage you to go and do the same thing. If you haven't played before, use promo code FULLTILT, FULLTILT. They will deposit match you up to $100. You should be doing that. It is a great time. Lots to tilt about. I have the player picks real quick. I see you did not make one. At least write one down.
You go first. We're just rotating segments of being unprepared now.
I picked Billy's for him because he's not here. He doesn't get a say. So if this one doesn't come through, blame Billy, not me. Sam Ellinger under 206.5 passing yards versus New England. I think this is an absolute lock. New England is a good defense, even if their offense makes you want to vomit. I think holding him under that is definitely a lock as Jacob picks his ear. And my pick is I'm taking PJ Walker under 195.5 passing yards. He's only hit 200 yards twice in his career. One of them was last week, an obvious career high. He has a tough matchup this week against Cincinnati. Going to be pissed. They have an elite pass rush. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to go with the under at 195.5. Jacob, you're real quick over under.
I gotta stick with the bit here. And that is, my continued centrism of Gabriel Davis, whichever way the pendulum swings, I got to be on the other side. No, I will take the under on Gabriel Davis, 58.5 receiving yards this week. I like Gabriel Davis. However, what we saw last week was Jair Alexander matched up with Gabe Davis a ton because they moved Diggs all the way around the formation. They play the New York Jets and Sauce Gardner this week. I expect to potentially see a similar thing where they take great care to have Stephon Diggs move all over the formation, in the slot, all around, get him on favorable matchups, and sort of just use Davis as a sacrificial lamb to the Sauce slaughter. And it's almost similar to what we saw in the Broncos game where Sutton was playing that split end position, just absorbing Gardner coverage, and Judy was the one getting the targets because they were moving him around more, spreading the ball out to him and Greg Dulcich. So give me Gabe Davis under 58.5. If he ends up seeing a lot of sauce, it's not going to be pretty. That guy's honestly, he might already be the best cornerback in the league. It's unreal.
He's very good. Also, shout out to Jacob for completing a trade live on air.
That's true. I did, yeah.
That just went through. It's Fournette and Gallup. You traded away for Watson, a 23 third and a 24 second. I think that's a good deal. I love that you're.
Somehow I have a lot of Christian Watson all of a sudden. I don't know how this happened.
You are never not on your value game. Look, that's it. That's Underdog. Put those picks in. Play with us. Remember, if you lose, we lose too. So remember that as you are yelling at us on the internet. Jacob, final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, man, fun trade deadline. I love that the NFL has just decided to be the NBA now, and just have like a gazillion trades. I would say embrace that in your teams. I think the best thing is to be active, be intentional, be doing something. Look at your team, try to do something, try to make your team a favorite if it's a contender, try and, take your team, tank it out. If it's not doing anything, do something. That'd be my advice for the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, have fun, enjoy on a great week of games.
Yeah, I absolutely, I agree with mostly everything you say. It's just sometimes I don't get the opportunity often, but I got to rub those W's in the old wounds of a 14K follower account now. I gotta get those in, get my numbers up, for us small guys here. Yeah. Hey, look, and my final thoughts are generally always the same. And it's check in on your loved ones, especially. Again, it's November. It's important. Men's health. Talk about it. There is a stigma forever that men can't talk to one another, can't talk to other people. And it is a massive problem. This month is a very good month to reiterate that you can, you should, and it will help. I think that's important. And again, with November, we can't wait to keep this train going. And you're going to get sick of me talking about it, but I'm not going to be sick of talking about it. And that's something for sure. I always say on the show, check in on your loved ones, even if you're not sure if they need it, man. I mean, even on the oh my gosh, I'm losing my thoughts now. Takeoff, right? Rest in peace to Takeoff, right? Amigos. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Anything can happen, and we don't know. So check in on your loved ones all the time, and shout out to everyone going through that. It's absolutely brutal that this stuff keeps happening, but football is fun. Football is a great time. We have another great week. Let's hope for a lot more points. Remember that the Devi Show is out tomorrow. The Walkabout is on Friday. And you can find me Sunday with Chase doing the start and sit over there at Fantasy Intervention. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose in your best days. Well, goddamn, they're always Ben Tilton. Good night. See you later, Jacob. Hey, thanks everyone for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that bell to be notified every time we go live, every time we post a new video. Look, we're posting 8 to 12 videos a week minimum. New content, clips from our pods, links. It's all over there. Make sure to head over to Fantasy Points as well. They're doing everything from college football to everything else you need to know fantasy football related. We love each and every single one of you, and we will see you guys on the next show. Good night, everyone, for real.